At least 1 out of every 3 adults in America actually suffer from a lack of sleep. But before we can talk about why, I needed to talk about the elephant in the room. And the big elephant in the room is called stress. Over 70% of people say that they are under stress, they are living under stress. And over 85% of doctors' visits are related to stress. I believe that stress is the number one killer in America and in the civilized world for that matter. But what is stress? Stress is nothing more than an emotional or a mental strain that you feel to a threat. Now, the important thing is that the threat can be a real threat. So if you are out in a jungle and you all of a sudden you see a tiger come after you, or let's say you're in New York and you see a bad person who's going to rob you. So your brain has a sympathetic nervous system that it activates. And when the sympathetic nervous system it gets activated, it unfortunately deactivates the parasympathetic, which is our immune system. So let's say that you are, for example, you have a cold, right? You have a really bad cold, you're sneezing, but all of a sudden you see the robber or you see the tiger or something come after you. What do you think your brain is going to prioritize? Of course, it's going to prioritize the tiger or the predator. So the immune system function gets shut down for a while. This happens in all animals, by the way. The difference is in all animals, after the stressful situation has passed, the body returns to homeostasis, or returns to basically to balance. But one thing happens to us when the threat is not an actual threat, it's not a real threat. Now the threat can be let's say that the neighbor, or the guy who cuts you on the freeway, or your spouse, or your friends, or your children, or anything else, and you perceive, or your brain perceives as a threat, and it will start firing and wiring in your brain, and without you completely conscious of it. Because another situation that happens when you are under stress is that we have a very beautiful part of the brain which is called the prefrontal cortex, and that part is the part that plans. It's the part that where your conscious desires are. It's basically the CEO of your brain. But when you have a stress situation, that part of the brain gets shut down because the subconscious actually takes over, because it's way more powerful than the conscious mind. It actually acts a lot faster. You do things instinctively rather than thinking, oh, well, maybe I should run. You don't get to think that. You just get shut down. But what happens when you have this situation and you carry it throughout your life? Well, you're basically shutting down the part of your brain that is conscious, that can be, helpful for you. And you're consciously shutting down your dreams, your wishes, your desires. Because when you're in survival mode, and when you're in survival mode for a very long time, it's not a time to create, it's not a time to realize love, to have expectations about beautiful things happening to your life. It's not a time to do that. It's a time to survive, it's a time to run, it's a time to hide, a time to freeze. That's why they call it the fight or flight reaction, right? So when people have this prolonged stressful situation, they become addicted to the life basically that they don't want. Which is funny because you know that you don't want to live that way. You know that you don't want to live in fear, to live in anger, but you become addicted to it. Part of it is related to adrenaline being released in your system, and the adrenaline actually is addictive. So when people have experienced that for a prolonged period of time, they will become addicted to that feeling, to that situation. What may also happen is that people will feel they are victims to their environment, to their spouse, to their co-workers, to their jobs, etc. And they won't be able to come out of that easily, because they will rather cling to that fear, that guilt, that shame, than actually take a chance on love, take a chance on a new life, take a chance on happiness. Because remember, you are in survival mode, so no time for happiness, no time for joy, no time to experience those things. Now, as a direct result, and coming back to sleep, why is it that stress is so related to sleep? Well, when people live under stress, remember, if you are being chased by a tiger or a predator, you don't want to sleep, right? You actually want to stay awake as much as possible, because the predator is out there, and if you fall asleep, it's going to catch you. So this is why your brain will reduce the production of melatonin, which is a key neurotransmitter that you need for sleep, because you are on high cortisol and you're on low melatonin, which is the state of stress. And because of that, you cannot sleep through the night. You need to stay awake because the predator is out there. And remember, the predator can be your bills, your neighbor, etc. And another thing that you will notice is that because you are reliving a situation that you have created by yourself with your mind, you will have over 90% of your thoughts are going to be the same as yesterday. So we typically tend to have that unless we change the pattern. And that means your same behaviors, your same patterns, your same thoughts are going to rule over your life. And this is also going to be subconsciously, because your conscious mind is, remember, it gets shut down when you are in survival mode or when you're in stress mode. And the other thing that's going to happen when you sleep is that people tend to have more heightened senses. So they have better hearing, better smell, etc. And the reason for that is also because if you're being chased by a predator, you could use all the help that you need, right? So if you hear this little tiny thing sounding in the distance, the neighbor making a sound in 2 blocks away, you're still gonna hear it because your senses are now really attuned to the outside world. And speaking of the outside world, this is something else that happens when you're in stress. You tend to live in a very materialistic world. You tend to, seek pleasure in things like a new car, a new phone, a new TV, etc. Because you are trying to find in those things the happiness that you are craving for. You're actually craving for a better life, but your subconscious will not let you unless you can get out of that stressful situation. And this becomes a very hardwired situation in your life, especially if you are older than 35, because by the time we are 35, our brains have been hardwired. And it's not impossible to change. It's neuroplasticity is a new science, and it demonstrates that we can do a lot of things, but it becomes harder. And because of this hardwire, what's going to happen also is you are going to become used to your familiar past, which, by the way, 50% of our thoughts from the past are actually fake. We invented them. So we are going to try to tune into the bad feelings that we had in the past, the negative things, more than the positive when we are under stressful situations. And this will also deliver a very predictable future. I sometimes feel like people that are under stress are like robots, because they don't have any conscious mind. They're just running their day to day with a program that they don't even like because it wasn't their own program to begin with. But this is what happens to you unless you can break the cycle. And now that you know how you've been programmed and what could be affecting your sleep, what can you do to improve your sleep quality? What can you do to actually break the cycle and live a happier and better life? Well, these are some tips. And mind you, these are going to be hard in the beginning, because remember, when you are in stress, you would rather hold on to the thing. So you will say to yourself, I'm not a morning person. I'm not this. I'm not that. I don't read books. Documentaries are boring, etc. Any type of new information that comes your way, you are going to try to push it away. And any people who come with that information, you are going to try to push them away too, because they are not supporting your present limiting beliefs. So when you approach this, try to approach this with an open heart. And the very first thing that I tried doing was I tried meditating. And I don't call it meditating so much. I call it more like being in the present moment. Because when you talk about meditation, you think about monks in Tibet or something like that. And, we can all achieve living in the present moment. And what happens when you start living in the present moment is that your subconscious will still try to sabotage you. It will still try to say, hey, you're off schedule. You're not screaming at the lady in the, in the supermarket, or you're not screaming at your boss or your coworkers, etc. But what happens is, over time, if you start doing it more and more, living in the present, and start meditating more and more, what's going to happen is you're going to tell your brain, no. Yeah, I'm going to feed you your bad thoughts. I'm going to feed you your negativity, etc. But right now, we're going to go to the present moment, and we're going to enjoy the present moment. And when you're enjoying the present moment, what you want to aim is for a sense of gratitude. You want to aim for good things that are happening in your life. And even if they're not happening in your life, you want to imagine that they are already there. So the financial security that you're seeking is already there. The love of your life is already there. You have everything you need every day. And if you do it in the morning, it's even better. I have another post that you can check out on a morning ritual. But if you do it first thing in the morning, it's better because your brain is not fully awake. So if you force your brain to go down that path of the present moment, of being grateful, then over time, you're going to start feeling better, and you're going to start feeling happier, and you're going to start feeling like, oh, I had a victory today. I wasn't negative all the time, right? Because over 70% of our thoughts in our day-to-day are actually negative thoughts. So you need to change that. You need to change that. And the way to change that is not the typical willpower. Willpower will not get you there. And the reason being, willpower comes from your prefrontal cortex. So your prefrontal cortex is not going to be able to outnumber your subconscious mind. So your subconscious mind is a lot more powerful. It's 1,000,000 times more powerful than your conscious mind. And this is why you have to reprogram. And that's where being in the present moment comes into place. And that's where being grateful every day comes into place. I also recommend one very powerful thing which you need to start doing is turn off your cell phone at some point in the day and the afternoon, and don't turn it back on until the next day, at 9 or 10 a.m. or way after you have woken up. Don't do what everybody does, which is look for the cell phone, reach for the cell phone, do WhatsApp and Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. First, tackle yourself, being in the present moment, being grateful. And then sure enough, at some point in the day, you go and get distracted with that stuff. But it's very important. When I was beginning to do that, I actually had to leave my cell phone physically out, because I knew that I would reach for the cell phone once I was in the bed. And so first thing in the morning, I would just go and reach for it. And when I didn't have it, I said, well, now I need to create something different. And that's when I started breaking the pattern. And one very powerful thing that you can do is also you can look for a support group, people that are on the same page as you, instead of people that will bring you down, people that will help you to be happier. Most people that are under stress, they hang out with other people that are under stress. So there are, 2 sad people or 3 sad people or 4 sad people or whatever. And they will bring each other down, which that's not what you want. You want people to lift you, to, people that are happier than you, that you can learn from. And so it's important to become a support group with each other. And if you have a very close friend, a partner, a spouse, or something like that you can rely on, and you can walk on this journey together to better sleep, better stress management, etc. That's even better. That's what I would recommend anyway. Now, what happens if you are one of the people that have been living your life consciously and fully, and you are experiencing either living or being close to other people that are not? Well, what I recommend is that you continue on your journey, because you can only serve yourself first. And the other thing that you want to do is you don't want to pressure other people, because remember, they are unconsciously doing it. they're not even conscious that they're, they're so sad, so unhappy. So you don't want to pressure that. What you do want to do is, if you stumble across these people, is you want to try to have acts of love. Acts of love can be something very simple, like, oh, I closed the door for you because that person was, they left the door open or something. And you want to do it without expecting anything in return, without expecting even, thank you or anything. And you also sometimes want to do it without them even being aware of it. Because when they become aware of it, they're like, oh no, I can take care of my own laundry, or, so you want to be careful with that. But just do as many acts of love as you can for that person. I hope that this has been helpful. It was a little longer than usual. I apologize for that. But anyway, please share it with somebody you love if you feel that it will be helpful for them. And remember to subscribe. And I do have a Patreon page. If you want to contribute, even $1 would make the world of difference to me. So thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.